Just finished your Pong tutorial and you have a functioning game. And it works. And you might want to ask yourself, what changes can I make? We are going to put a game over screen in. We're going to change the angle of the ball. We're going to change the speed of the ball. We're going to put a high score in there. And we're going to make sure that everything disappears when we're finished the game, so it's a lot cleaner. There's a couple other things in here we won't touch on, but I think once we do the other ones, you probably can figure out how to do the ones we leave out. The first change we're going to make is change the angle of the ball, because right now it looks kind of repetitive and it's not going. So we're going to press stop. We're going to look at the code, and here, every time it touches the paddle, it's going back exactly in the opposite direction. What if we kind of vary that a bit? And this guy here, if we change 180 and we put this in the block, notice the shapes that'll fit. Instead of 180, what if we put like maybe 15 on each side, 165, 180 plus 15 is 195. That way it's not going to be perfect bounce, but it's going to at least give a game a bit of variety. Let's test that. Yep, so that's kind of working. You know, it's a little bit of variety. Okay, that works. I like that. We fixed the bounce on the ball. What happened? Let's change something when the game's over. What if when the ball hits the red line, rather than, or in fact, yeah, when the ball touches the red line, rather than stopping everything, we firstly change the backdrop. So right now we have this neon tunnel, it's called. We can go make a new backdrop, and you can do this however you like. I'm going to call it game over, and you can use text just for sake of speed. Let's say you had something that says game over. Not the best design thing, but it works. Okay, and bingo. So over here we need, when it touches, change the look, change backdrop, switch backdrop to game over. But if we do that, that means when we start the game, we need to make sure that we start with the original one. And then we can stop all. Now, let's test that. Will it work? Yep, it was. When we start, we've got a little issue with the ball kind of gets stuck in the red line, because when we start the game, the ball basically doesn't, it just follows these rules. So what if we fix that by, when the game starts, when they're ready to play, we tell the ball to go somewhere. And the simplest thing is we could put it somewhere. We could, in more advanced things, we could tell it to drop somewhere from this axis. But for now, let's just say, when the game starts, let's just say start from here. And because we put the ball there, it knows the coordinates. We're just going to say, pop that in here. So let's test that. Okay, so the game's over, and now it's at least going back to the start. Bingo. So if you wanted to keep your high score, rather than just keep getting it reset all the time, wouldn't it be nice to kind of have a record of it? So let's think about this. If we're going to make a high score, first of all, make a variable called high score, and we're going to say that if the high score that we get is greater than, if the high score we get, no, if the score that we get when we're playing happens to be greater than the high score, then we're going to set the high score to the score. And that has to be true all the time that we're playing. So we could make this, just for simplicity's sake, we'll keep it outside. We could have put all this in here if we wanted to. Okay, let's test this out. Okay, so we got a high score of 1. Let's play again. And a high score of 2 and 3. And let's die. Okay. Play again. Works. And you might notice it doesn't get any harder. So what if you had something that when the score increases, it would get harder and harder, and then one way to do that would be maybe to make the ball move faster. You could also make the ball smaller. You can make the paddle smaller, a number of things. In this case, what if we just said if the score was greater than 2, etc. Let's test that. So we're playing, and it starts off at that 15, and because it says greater than 2, it should take off now, and that seems to work. Let's assume, so you could have you could have a whole bunch of these, and then you'd have a very simple way to increase the difficulty. That's just one way. Rather than have a whole series of these, what if you had something called speed, where variables change depending on other conditions? So what if we had speed? What if we said that we are going to set, and initially we are simply going to say we're going to move speed steps, and maybe when we start the game we can say, where did that go? Set speed to a number, and then every time, that way would work, we could say every time we change the score, we could change the speed by 1 as well. That should work. Maybe 1 is too much. Maybe you can hit 0.1, or you could work on that, but you can see how that works. Much more efficient than having all this over here. Cool things. What about making it a bit cleaner? So what I mean by cleaner is when the game ends, right now the ball gets stuck here and we see everything. What if we had something where when the game went over, all of these things disappeared and we just had our game over screen? Let's check that out. I think we need to go to our switch to backdrop to game over. And we're going to introduce a new block called broadcast. So when the ball finally touches that line and that screen comes up, the message sent out is game over. And what that means is, think of that like as Wi-Fi. It goes through the air and everything in the game can hear it. So when the line hears game over, it's going to go away. By go away, we mean hide. And it also means that when the game starts, it needs to show up. So this is going to be true for the ball and for the paddle as well. Let's go to the ball and our little block came over here, and we just have to make sure that we hit the show when the game starts. And on the paddle needs to show up when the game starts as well. So let's test that. Perfect. I like it. Awesome. didn't change the background of the ball strikes, because that's pretty easy. I think you could figure that on your own. Change all kinds of things. We had a game over screen. We changed the angle of the ball. We changed the speed of the ball 2 ways. We did not change the size of the sprites with a score, but you could do that. You could figure that out by how we changed the speed. We did put a high score in. We didn't put a live sky in there just yet. And we used the broadcast block, and we used the speeds variable. So there's a lot of new things in there. Yay!